I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Happy Wednesday. Welcome into Tech Talk. You've got us on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. Thank you for joining us. First for action later tonight here on Double T 97.3. We are live from the First United Bank studio. A couple different ways that you can reach us. You can call us on the Visual Edge IT hotline. That number is 806-771-0973. Or you can hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Thoughts, comments, questions. If you want to give us a look into your bracket predictions, we'll take them there. Take us anywhere with the mobile app, brought to you by Happy State Bank. We're also streaming live on Fox 34 News Now and on YouTube. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Porman behind the glass. Gus, how goes it?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I don't know, hot day outside today. I got in my car. It was warm.
You're supposed to do it in a way where you point, remember, to the green screen and say, remember to bring those swim trunks and bust out the sunscreen today.
Yes.
Straw hats aplenty.
Hey, be careful out there in your golf course. Yeah, no, it's a nice day out there. I guess we're going to get a little rain tomorrow. A bit, the one kind of balky looking day on the week forecast is tomorrow, and then really nice, into the weekend beyond tomorrow. And we'd take a little rain, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Red Raider baseball, they get a win against Abilene Christian last night.
Good solid performance. Yeah.
Not the greatest start.
No.
For Mr. Petty.
No.
What have you made of his season? Because it has been dicey at times.
Yeah.
Definitely started off not great. And as you've mentioned, a guy that we've had plenty of off-season talk around him. And it felt like every time we talked about him, we're also talking about Kyle Robinson, because they felt like as close to a
Friday,
lock
Saturday.
as your weekend starters as you could get.
Friday, Saturday, absolutely. Yeah, those dudes need to be as consistent as possible, and that doesn't mean there's not going to be a bad outing or two in there. But those guys, Kyle's found a lot more consistency than Petty has, and that's why Petty's pitching on Tuesdays. But yeah, that was really disheartening yesterday, and I'm saying that just for me, but I was just talking about, one of the kind of the way John and I set up our pregame stuff, give the pitcher's numbers. I talk about his last performance, really good, 6 innings, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, flooding that strike zone, 4 balls, balk, it was a disaster. And I don't know what that means exactly in terms of, if I were to act like I could diagnose it or anything, but I think he's becoming a mystery to a lot of folks around that program, and because it's in there. It's in there. Like 18 months ago, this cat was drafted by the Brewers. It was down into the teens, but they were willing to spend some money on him. But right now, to be that dramatic of a swing, because he walked the first 3. A wild pitch mixed in there, and then punches out the next 3 or 2 or whatever, and then hit a guy. And then all of a sudden you're looking at 35 pitches in an inning. It's like, in a lot of pro organizations with a minor leaguer, if they get up around 35 pitches in an inning, they're done. And Tim might have had him slotted for 5 innings, or it might have been like last week. Hey, go out and pitch till you make us take you off the mound, and he was like, okay, after 1 inning, we'll go ahead and get you now. And unfortunately,
that If that was the thought, then it did not go very long.
Yeah, exactly. And it could have been, and there could have been some tough love in there. I don't know what happened in the locker room or down there, post game, or if their post mortem is today and they sit down and look at video or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But he had about, I bet he had 6 or 7 arm side misses. He was just flying open, and which means that for a right-handed pitcher, he's up and away to a left-handed hitter. Or he's hitting a right-handed hitter in the head, and he obviously didn't do that. But that's where a lot of his misses were. They were he was flying open, and so his where are they with him? There's another Tuesday game next week, and then the following Monday, Tuesday, Stanford's here, and so you got to believe that they'll need him to carry some innings in that thing, but. I mean, one of the ultimate decisions, and this wasn't a Tadlock thing. It wasn't even a Texas Tech coach that told me this one time, but it was like a coach told me this. It's like, one of the ultimate questions you need to be able to answer with your play is, can we trust him? Can I trust you? It's Clint and I. Can we trust? Can we trust Ben? Can we trust Ben?
Ben, can we trust you to throw 95
and that's
miles an hour?
Do you want to put Ben out there at linebacker? Can we trust him? Do you want to put Ben at point guard? Can we trust him? Do you want to put Ben can we trust him? And it's not about is he good enough? Mm-hmm. It's like, what's he going to do today? Like, is it going to be anything like yesterday? Mm-hmm. And that's this Petty's ceiling. He's a weekend starter. Petty's basement, the floor, it's unfortunately it's pretty low, mm-hmm. and the really tough part is that it's the strike zone that drifts on him, and so I'm rooting for the kid, but that was a mess, and really like the offensive performance around that game because it wasn't just a 19-run inning or whatever and coast. It was a 3 and then a 2 and then a 2 and then a 1 and then a 2 and. It was just good, steady offense all night, which they needed because they were 0 for their last 23 with runners on base, or runners in scoring position, rather.
So we've got some headlines coming up.
Yes, sir.
So this Tech Talk here in Double T 97.3, the juice coming up. I want you to hang on to that thought because you unknowingly really foreshadowed a question I have for you later on about baseball and the word trust, and I'll just leave it at that, and I'll save it for about 20 minutes from now. It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. You can trust that we'll be back. Back with more next.
The podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is time for the juice. You got Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. Thanks for joining us. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Porman behind the glass. It is a Viking, Gusta Rhymes, John Ben Jovi edition of the program. First 4 action tonight. We'll start the headlines with everything that we have on the airwaves. And up first at 5:30 after we're done, Grambling and Montana State. Of course, we all remember Montana State, an opponent just a couple years ago. The Bobcats out of Bozeman, Montana. Also a football opponent you've had.
That was on this date the other day.
Mm-hmm. After that, 8 o'clock, Game 2, Colorado and Boise State. So if you're looking to see a future Big 12 opponent, you can check out the Buffs tonight at 8 o'clock here on Double T 97.3. Of course, the first 4, first 2 of the first 4, were yesterday. Colorado State. This game was disgusting. And that has been basically the Virginia signature this year, and it hasn't always been great. It's like they either have an exit in the round of 64. They have had, I think, one advanced into the round of 32 in the past 5 years, and of course we all remember the national championship year. Outside of that, it has been tough sledding, and offensively, this year was bad for the Cavaliers in last night's game, 67-42. Woof. Wagner was in a thriller. Howard had like 3 chances at the end to tie this up, and ultimately Wagner moves on 71-68. We are underway, though, for the tournament. High School Fan Zone is on the airwave tonight at 6 o'clock. Garrett Luft will be here in the First United Bank studio, joined by coaches from Friendship at 6, Lubbock Cooper at 6:20, and Liberty at 6:40. Make sure to tune in there on the Score. Always good stuff with Mr. Luft, Lil.com. The 6th-ranked Red Raider men's golf team won their second event in 3 tries. So it's been pretty good so far for the highly ranked Red Raider men's golf team. This one was at the Golf Club of Houston as they claimed the All-American Intercollegiate title. They were 7 over par as a team. Callum Scott had the best finish. It was a top 10 finish, the second of his career, tying for 6th. You also saw in the individual tournament, this was the All-American Intercollegiate individual side, Charlie DeLong, Red Raider Jr., won the whole event with a 3 under par. So good news on both fronts. They will be in action again next Monday and Tuesday at the Valspar Collegiate Invitational, hosted at the Floridian National Golf Club. Texas Tech baseball beat ACU last night 9-4. Parker Hutera picks up the win, his second of the season. 6 Red Raiders ended up with at least an RBI. Scoring was started with Cade McGee, who had a 3-run bomb for the Red Raiders when they were down 2-0 to give them a 3-2 lead. He was 2 for 4 from the plate. You have the day off. Then guess what? You get to be right back in action tomorrow because you're taking on BYU for the first time as a conference opponent in the sport of baseball.
Yeah, we've played them before, but not as a conference opponent.
And last but not least, another national headline for you. Something we never really got into, but I think is interesting because Nebraska has been looking for a new athletic director, and they have hired
Look no more.
Washington's Troy Dannon, which means now Washington will be looking for a new athletic director. Usually when you do the trickle effect, you're looking more. And this is from coaches.
The ripple.
It goes down to, in my eyes, smaller program to smaller program to smaller program. And this one has been Texas A&M, where Trev Alberts went, to Nebraska, to Washington. I mean, they're all on fairly equal footing.
Yeah, we're all new SEC Big Ten, Yeah, sometimes it'll end with a internal hire too.
Sure.
If Washington, they could go hire somebody from UCLA or whatever, or they could hire their senior associate AD who's ready. But yeah, this has been interesting because that was quick. Arkansas didn't mess around. Nebraska didn't mess around.
No.
Bada bing, bada boom.
And that is the juice. You can hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. We got this. Gus, how does BYU look? Are we sweeping this week?
I don't know about sweeping, but I sure hope so. But, they lost 2 of 3. And you and I were in here watching that. They lost 2 of 3 in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And that was where they played a Thursday game, and then they played a doubleheader on Friday because they were set for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think they had weather on Saturday, so they doubled up on Friday. And West Virginia took 2 of 3, and it was over before we had thrown a pitch in our series. I guess that would have been Texas weekend, but and then last week they rebounded by taking 2 of 3 from the Houston Cougars in Provo. So, we'll see. We need to. You just think about it. It's not a totally separate conversation that we would have in football or basketball or men's or women's. That you kind of look at things and you go, hey, you're 24 more games left. You got 8 more weeks of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need to panic. But you also see, hey, we're playing teams that are probably a little bit down the standings relative to the Sooners at the end, relative to a trip to Stillwater or Fort Worth, and so you would like to, again, just sitting here from Fanville over here where you and I sit.
Oh, got a lot of Dr. Pepper at Fanville.
Observer land.
The boss is the sheriff for some reason.
Yes, he is. From over here where we sit, you look at it and go, man, you don't want to be not stacking up some wins here, because it's going to be hard to, gain all the ground you want and just pile up wins at the very end because the competition picks up. But and I've said this, and this is just my hunch. It's too early to really spend much time on this, but it feels like to me our league is not going to be as deep as we would like it. It's not going to be basketball deep for sure. Mm-hmm. And so I can't see. And the strength of your league is if you're going to get 5 in or 7 in or 3 or 9 or whatever that is, the strength of it really has to do with that last team. Well, you'll get 8 in if your 8th best team is good enough. Mm-hmm. The key thing is, what are we? And so if we feel that we are a 5-team league, which might be about right, I worry that it's a 4-team league. Mm-hmm. But there's some teams that have floundered out of the gate right here that are probably a whole lot better. And then
you mentioned like yesterday, then you have a surprise like with Oklahoma.
Right.
Is that something, is that fool's gold or is that real?
Going into Fort Worth and taking all 3 this early is that's a way to make that fool's gold have a little bit of actual, hey, look, some real gold in there, because they'll be able to drop some other games. I don't mean get swept by Cincinnati. I'm not saying that, but they've got some mulligans. They've got some cushion built up.
I heard that a lot in high school.
And similar to TCU getting swept at home, they've got some making up to do if they're going to chase somebody down. And so, everybody's kind of looking in the mirror right now, and I just don't know that there's going to be a whole lot more than 4 or 5 out of this league. Would hate for it to be 3. We just need to make sure we're in that conversation, but I don't think this league's going to have a ton of RPI heft associated with it.
We'll talk a little bit more baseball on the other side. It is Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3, DoubleT97.3.com. Back with more next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Gus is pumped right now.
Gus is watching Yo MTV Raps.
You are.
I had to mute it for the show. I'll be right back on here in a minute. Be lucky this TV doesn't have a pause button.
It's kind of like
Fat Joe and Nelly are on here, man.
Nelly rocking the Cards cap too. So I mean,
he's from the Lou, dude.
You should get the Band-Aid under the eye. I feel like you could really you could tear it up with the Band-Aid under the eye.
You think that could be my
Your
Halloween costume?
Forget Halloween. I want you like in the broadcast booth with that.
Oh,
the ESPN
nice.
Plus shots go to him.
That'd be perfect.
Gus and MC Hammer.
Yeah.
Who's that guy in the ESPN Plus booth wearing chains and a Band-Aid?
No, it would be.
Eye?
Hey, who used to sit up there until the day he broadcast with John until the day he wore a Band-Aid and a hat and got fired?
Yeah, just saying things. You could mention like, oh yeah, it's a little bit more sunny this week than what it was last week, and yeah, it's definitely getting hot in her.
Yes, exactly. What was that tool's name?
Yeah, I think you should go for it. It is Tech Talk here in Double T 97.3 and DoubleT97.3.com. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Poorman behind the glass. Keep hitting us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Gus, you were talking, and I already have another question for you that I'm going to ask afterwards. But just first, with how you view the conferences, because you said you like it to be a 5-league team.
I'd like to be
or
6 or 7, league. But yeah, I don't. It doesn't. I mean, I worry that it's 3 to 5, and that's probably being a little dramatic on the 3, and probably being a little dramatic there. But I worry about it.
So when you look at the like, if you were going from conference to conference, obviously dominated by the SEC, ACC, very good
this year. Yeah.
And where does the Big 12 line up?
I know. It's a good question. I think in our best years, we've been in there behind the SEC. And I say it. I don't mean our Texas Tech, although we were certainly part of that success. But in the Big 12's best years recently, over the last 10 years.
Well, you'd like to think you carry some heft, though. I
mean, sure.
And that you're, when you're doing that conference to conference, sticking out your chests, doing a measuring competition, if you will, from conference to conference, that you carry some impact with that, and you're a plus in that because of your success. Sure,
and I think the ACC right now is getting. Florida State had their worst series in 40, 50, not quite 50 years, but 40 plus years, 45 plus last year, and they're undefeated this year. So, and that's the coach that was at Notre Dame the year they beat us in the regional in Georgia, and then pulled the shocker of the nation and went into Knoxville and took the first two against Tennessee just a couple of years ago, 3, maybe 2, I don't know. Anyway, 2-3 years ago. He's now the head coach at Florida State, which is where he played. So anyway, the answer to that question, I would say what we don't know yet is what is the top of it may very well be a situation where the Pac-12 this year is a league that it would finish better than us in RPI as well. And there may be a couple of things. This is certainly not blaming, I don't want to make it sound like it's all the new Northern school's fault. But, the BYU Cincinnati thing's not going to help a ton. UCF and Houston may help. And I say that purely because, they're non-conference opponents just in their region are going to be good. They're UCF's playing FAU last night. BYU's playing Utah Tech. And part of that is just the ability to travel and get your classes managed and do all that. You need those opponents that are a bus ride away and not getting on a plane and missing 3 days of class.
UCF is interesting in that regard because
they're close. I mean, they got a ton around them, dude.
Just look around at just the big time programs that are around you and that they've played regularly.
Yeah,
not like it's been 10 years since they've seen the Gators.
You got three pretty. Yeah, you've got three. I don't know how broad you want to go with Blue Bloods, but you got three college baseball programs nearby or in that state. I don't want to reduce it because people will reduce Texas to, hey, you guys are close. You guys are just down the road from Houston. Like, that's like 9 hours. And Florida gets big like that as well. But in their state, UCF has the Gators. We know about them. Certainly over the last 10 years, they've won national championships and been at the very top of the game. We know about Florida State's history, 40-something years in a row in the regionals. And we know about Miami. They've won a handful of national championships and a ton of regional success. And so, UCF's ability to schedule quality non-conference and, just non-conference period, but especially midweeks, that's a big deal, man, because that's where their heft comes from. That's where your RPI heft comes from. If you're having to schedule, region like for Cincinnati, it's just a tougher deal. West Virginia, it's a tougher deal. But we'll see. I think some of that will come down to what are the Arizona schools. A lot of the Pac-12 reputation will revolve around sort of their traditional powers, which are UCLA, Stanford. We know Oregon State's good. Where's Oregon and all that? Oregon maybe a little bit like Texas Tech. Of course, we've got to win over them, and so that helps us. But what are they? Have they? What will they evolve into? What are those two Arizona schools? Well, we're going to play one of them. We got 2 games against the Sun Devils at the very end this year, and so we'll see. I don't know. I would guess that this year, and one thing going for the ACC as well, and then I'll shut up.
No, please don't.
Maryland.
We're going to 5:30, Gus.
I know. The ACC spun off Maryland into the Big Ten, but they also picked up Pittsburgh and Boston College, and so those schools get farther north, and it just gets harder. And that's also where, not because it's a baseball decision, but that's also where the restlessness, or that probably in a tiny, tiny way, contributes to the restlessness of Florida State and Clemson.
Oregon State, I know this has nothing to do with, we were just we were just talking about with the Big 12 and stuff like that. But you mentioned Oregon State, and I'm curious what, not being a part of a major conference does to them across all sports, but specifically baseball. But on the flip side,
you're talking about next year.
Yeah.
Where they're going
on the
independent
flip
in
side,
baseball,
if you're Oregon, if you're even a non-rival, like if you're UCLA or something like that, suddenly you have a very appealing non-conference opponent that's just popped up because you ditched the conference and one that carries a lot of weight.
There's some truth to that, and you got to align some things, and we may have already had some stuff on the books. But yeah, you would think that Oregon State is looking for as many opportunities. I mean, the beauty of an independent like them is that they're going to be a team that you can call for when you get your April open date, because that's the beauty of an independent. Whereas everybody's looking for games in the first 3 or 4 weekends of the season. Now maybe there could also be an opportunity that you're doing a 2-game midweek, but that's a long way away to go all the way to Corvallis for 2 games. Unless maybe you're on your way to BYU or something. And so we don't know enough. I don't think we out here in the public know enough about the next year's Big 12 schedule to even conceive of what the possibilities are. But I'm sure Tech is going to play in one of the MTEs, the multi-team events, somewhere.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
It is Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com. Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Foreman pumping out the tunes for us. Thank you, Ben, for playing some Amos Moses, Jerry Reed. Happy birthday, Mr. Reed. You can hit us up on the Yates Flooring Center chat line, thoughts, comments, questions. We'll get a play of the day from Ben here in just a moment. This from Shelley. Dr. G, much respect for your loquaciousness, but how long could you soliloquy given the right topic?
Oh, good Lord. I don't know. That's a good question. It would have to be a topic like Tech baseball or something like that.
Our on-air light is apparently broken. If you could hear Chuck
just came in. Hey, Clint, how's it going? We're on. That's what you heard in the background.
Somebody it would change out the on-air light. It's out. It's not working.
Because I've always had respect for guys that can actually but people who can just solo a sports talk show.
Yeah.
Just knock down 10-minute segment after 10-minute segment.
Sure.
And and that would be a comfort thing for sure, to get comfortable enough to be able to do that. That would be a comfort. Probably like Jamie has me do 1 inning of play-by-play, and that's over started I think in 2020, and I don't do that many radio games with him, and so there's a little more comfort with that than now. But soliloquy, I would have to really think through topics ahead of time probably, but I don't know. But I would, Shelley, if that sounded good, you're very kind and thank you, but I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to just try it. Right now
I just need to
a soliloquy on Right Said Fred.
That's
exactly what's on MTV right now.
The double shirt ripoff.
Yes.
Do a little turn on the catwalk.
Girls in their bikinis ripping your shirt off. How about that? Just another day at the house for Clint Scott.
Oh gosh, he always just sounded like he was in pain in this. Like, I'm too sexy for my shirt. So sexy that it hurts. Yeah, it does sound like it hurts.
That's the shtick, and we're going to need that clipped.
This on the Yates Flooring Center chat line where you can hit us up. It was so funny. I was just walking right in. This from Robert. Yukon, Marquette, Tennessee, North Carolina are my final 4. North Carolina wins it all. We haven't talked you into a bracket yet, have we?
No.
I mean, there's blank ones back there ready to be filled out. Who cares about the first 4?
Yep.
Which you can hear tonight, starting at 5:30 on Double T 97.3.
Exactly. That's what's so dramatic about our matchup tomorrow night is the the highest. I mean, they were 2-7 in their last 9 games. NC State was coming into the conference tournament, and then they run through what three tournament teams at least. I guess Virginia, Duke, North Carolina, and in so doing, they beat a 1 seed and a 2 seed or whatever it is.
Beat a 1 seed. Duke is a 4 seed. Virginia was in that 10 seed.
Yeah,
they technically showed up to the game. They were a 10 seed in the first 4.
Yeah. And so you're talking about and that not that that's this insurmountable thing, but that's 5 days in a row. That's like day 3. Okay, now you got a 10 seed. Okay, now you got a 4 seed. Okay, now you're beating a 1 seed, and so at their very highest end. But you talk about that last game, next game thing that I was just talking about. I was talking about it really across all sports, but baseball, basketball. Mm-hmm. Think about that, and that's kind of what we're banking on.
Yeah,
the emotion of what they just put together and did to get to this moment.
Does that they're spent, and that you have. You've gone through all that emotion. You've partied so hard. Your fighting spirit that was through
there's a
5
relief.
games.
Yeah,
you did it. You what you accomplished is what you wanted. Like you already did that. That was your mountaintop moment because you made it to the tournament.
And that flag can fly for a long time for sure.
Which, by the way, because this is another part of it. If they're playing their best basketball and you're playing your best basketball. I don't think it's a huge gap, but even without warring Washington, I think you are more talented as a basketball team. It's not a huge gap.
No.
But that's the other side of it is I feel like we've talked about, hey, is it going to be an on fire, just very spirited Wolfpack team, or is it going to be whew, that was a long ACC tournament.
Right,
barely made the flight over here to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and just like something's off, and then all of a sudden they lose by 7. Mm-hmm. That's what we're hoping for. And and they've got a gunner. I mean, they've got a guy that throws up stuff from all over the place. Those are scary to me in the NCAA tournament because you and I are talking about March Madness heroes. People that. That we first learned about, like Ali Fukmanesh, those type guys that,
his name.
But those type guys that outside of just living out here, not a beat writer for the national college basketball scene or whatever. Mm-hmm. We've never heard of those guys, and the fact that they played 2 years in the NBA, whatever. I've got a couple written down, but that's what's scary about NC State when there's a gunner, because most of the time the gunner that just takes everyone's breath away is some dude that's just throwing crap up from just from logos all over the place. And NC State's got a guy that will launch like that. I'm not saying he's this great whatever, that he's a sniper or whatever, but he's gonna have those days where he's hitting stuff from the logo and throwing up stuff that's next to impossible to defend. What we're hoping for is that stuff's clanging off the rim, and we're grabbing rebounds, going, "Thanks for throwing that crap up," And time will tell. But that's the daunting part about it. And again, if he just has an average day, maybe okay. If he goes off for 32, it becomes a problem.
Sure. And we'll jump back to more Red Raider basketball here. In just a moment. But we got to get in a play of the day, Ben.
And this is the matchup. They want LeBron James with a rock. And a deep 3. LeBron James against Marvin Pavlovich. James 2 in the mountain on the sideline.
What do you mean you're not making a call? Oh, wow. This is the danger of getting a guy going like LeBron, Chuck. 25 points.
This day in 2005, 20-year-old LeBron James goes for 56, 10, and 5 against the Raptors despite the loss and became the youngest player in NBA history to score 50-plus points.
Attaboy. Good work by you, Benny.
You know what I'm curious about? LeBron James is a polarizing figure because I feel like you either love him or you hate him, sort of thing. And that could even go to, well, I hate the NBA, and he's still very much at least a face of it. And so thus I hate him, or you hate him for whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things that he can be disliked for. And for me, I Either side, love them, hate them.
Sure.
I'm fairly in the middle part of that scale. But, like, go back to that time frame whenever everyone could see this super talented kid coming into the sport and knowing he was about to go to the NBA and knowing he was about to make some sort of, divot into the league. If you don't like him now, did you enjoy that part and like that early part of his career? Because I think for the most part, most people did, because we were just so enamored and just blown away by this 18, 19, and 20, 21-year-old kid just like immediately affecting the league.
Yep, it was very impressive in that time. Kind of Kevin Garnett did something similar, just amazing stuff.
It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3, DoubleT973.com. Back with more next.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction.
Clint Scott, Dr. Mike Gustafson, Ben Poorman behind the glass taking care of us. Hey, yesterday, practice number 1 was wrapped up. Spring football underway, and it'll end with the spring game on April 20th out in Midland. What are you interested most by in the spring season?
I think most of the time in the spring, Mike, and I probably learned this or maybe came to realize this, and there may be years where it's different, where the purpose, the emphasis is different. But I remember being around the, strength and conditioning in the early 90s, but 91, 92, 93, 91, 92. And realizing that, unless there was a new install or, a new offense or something, which we never had that, it's either about new players establishing themselves. If you said, hey, this is the first year for this quarterback to start, that's a big deal. That's a big point of emphasis, But I remember those 2 years, especially the second year, the thing you didn't see was just Bam Morris pounding the rock 30 times in a scrimmage, And I think this spring, I'm not saying he's standing over there on the sidelines, but this isn't about our starting running back. Not about him. It's about it. And
it's more because Taj Brooks is
right.
he's a known quantity.
Right, exactly.
At this point,
you're protecting him, and now he'll go through drills, and I'm not saying he won't do anything, but I'm way more interested in who's going to be Taj Brooks' backup. Who emerges out of that group. And I know there's been, there's some names that have been around a couple years, and there's also been, a name that a guy that showed up at Christmas that's in this recruiting class right here with the Will Hammond and that group that is has been impressive. Like a high school quarterback on a bad football team that, he elevated them into the playoffs but got them here. He's back to running back. It's like, hey, this guy's kind of a special talent. And so so those are the things like the things that come out of spring like that, tend to be either the conclusions that are arrived at may have to do with, hey, this guy switched positions. See that, a running back moving to receiver, a tackle moving to center, a linebacker moving to safety, whatever. Do those things work? And you and I's eyes with a little bit of what we might see other than a big play or two in a scrimmage or a spring game, we may not get enough revealed to us. But if we hear those coaches going, hey, so-and-so's moving to such and such, like one of the position moves that's noteworthy, Mike Dingle. Right, Dingle came in 2 Christmases ago, so a year and 15 months ago or whatever, and immediately ran the hurdles for Coach Kitley's indoor and scored in the Big 12 meet.
Yeah,
walked in and, I'm not saying he was our best hurdler, but he was whatever, like 4th or 5th in the Big 12. Amazing.
Enough to make an impact.
Played in his 4 games. Stood out in spring ball last year. Played his 4 games last fall. Now he did have a shoulder injury, and so his wasn't just 4 games and shut him down. He got dinged up and isn't going to be full contact this spring. Probably in the process of reconditioning or rehab, whatever. But he's moving to star. They're going to take a look at him as star, which is, it's sort of that linebacker safety hybrid.
It's a guy that's going to be involved in a lot of blitzing.
Yes,
as well. Plus,
and a lot of run.
You have to be athletic and be tough size-wise, but also it's a position that you have to have flexibility and some coverage ability.
Yep, speed. You've got a lot of screen assignments. And it's a speed thing, but yeah, they're sticking their nose in the middle. That was Owens last year, and Anyway, it's and so they're going to try that this spring. And if he can't do it, it doesn't mean like that's a failure, but this is the time. And so I think the things that come out of a spring ball aren't, hey, Taj Brooks is a good running back.
This just in.
Right. This is more about the new receivers.
Mm-hmm.
This is more about position moves or new faces.
Mm-hmm.
This is more about, just depth pieces. Like Tech lost a couple of corners. And there's a lot of competition at corner, and that'll carry through spring ball and into August and probably into the early games. But just those names we read about as recruits, and then maybe you don't hear much about them, and then it's like, oh, okay, now he's on a depth chart. Mm-hmm. And so here we are. That's and so you're asking about specifics. Dingle is one.
Mm-hmm.
What comes out of that DB room in terms of those corner positions? Because there was a lot of young guys that played a little bit last year, but they're thrust into two. A young. It's a talented group, but it's a younger group at corner. Yeah.
You know what's and this is maybe more towards the Taj Brooks of what you're talking that is interesting to me. And one, it's too bad you're not going to, Micah Hudson isn't going through spring, and Jalen Conyer is another, the tight end you get from Arizona State, explosive athlete, a guy that will see the field, and they're expecting both of them to be there for summer, but as far as the spring stuff, they're not going to be there. So obviously that's a bummer, and nothing you can do about that. But something that is interesting is, as much as we kind of had question marks around the linebacker spot last year, it's funny now, like with Ben Robertson, Jacob Rodriguez, it's like sealed up, good to go. It's Tech Talk here on Double T 97.3.
This has been the Tech Talk Podcast, presented by Cantex Roofing and Construction. Check out our library of Double T 97.3 podcasts at doublet97.3.com.